Well, thank you guys for having me out tonight. Has anybody here ever started a company? Well, a couple of you guys. Anybody else want to start a company? Great. I think this is for you guys, which is most everybody. And so my background is I came to Austin back in 1986 when there was 500,000 people in the city. And I got an MBA at UT. And then I went to work for National Instruments for 24 years. And they went IPO in 95, and I started doing angel investing after that. And then one thing led to another, and I created this group called the Texas Entrepreneur Network, which was to help companies raise funding, Texas companies in particular. And we wanted to work with startups and early stage companies and working with angel investors. And for the last 10 years, I've been working in that capacity, helping people raise funding, and we're closing in on about $300 million raised through our different programs, funding forums, angel groups, and venture summits that we're doing right now. So wanted to share with you, over the last couple of years we actually moved all of our programs online in the form of a crowdfunding portal as I started getting a lot of interest from people in crowdfunding. And I think at this point it's safe to say that most people have heard of crowdfunding and a lot of people know something about crowdfunding, but where I think we are is we're not quite sure which funding model to use now because there's many of them out there. And so what I wanted to talk with you tonight is I think crowdfunding is one of the best tools for raising funding, and I take a very broad definition of crowdfunding, and that is sourcing funds through the web. And what you'll find is that there's many crowdfunding portals and models coming out there. It's said that there's over 2,000 crowdfunding portals out there today, and what you're finding is that there's many more coming online every day. And what you'll find in the future is that this is going to be one of the primary ways you're going to raise funding. And the question I often get is, well, based on where I'm at and what I want to do, which of these types of funding do I want to use? And I'll go through and I'll show you what those are here in a second. And then the thing I like to say about crowdfunding, and what's better than just going to a bank and getting money, is that it helps build support for your business. And if anybody's here ever been out to raise funding and you ever talked to an angel investor or a venture capitalist, you know how hard that is to raise funding. And when I stand in the angel groups, and I started 3 of them here in Texas, the Central Texas Angel Network, the Baylor Angel Network, and the Local Angel Network, I stand in those rooms, and every week somebody walks in the room and basically says, well, I didn't put any money in. My family didn't put any money into the business. No one bought anything. No one else invested. How about you? And when you start hearing that as an investor, nobody's in this deal, nobody's buying anything, nothing's happening, they start to back up and start to walk away. And what you find with crowdfunding, better than a bank loan or something else, is that as you build as you raise your funding, you're building your business. You're building support for it. And we'll show you how that works here. And that's really the key is to running a successful business, is that you're building support along the way. And that's a little bit of the myth in raising debt from a bank, is that, yeah, you go get a $50,000 loan from a bank, but how many more customers did they hand you? None. How many more prospects? None. How many more branding? None. You got nothing else out of it except for money. And what's key with crowdfunding is it gives you money plus support that comes with it. And that's what you always want to know, is when the money comes, what comes with it. If there's support behind it, this is going to go somewhere. If there's not support behind it, you're rolling the dice. It may work, it may not. So that's why so many businesses fail, is they got money, but they didn't get the support that comes with it. And so what we're going to do today is talk about how you do crowdfunding from start all the way up the curve. So oftentimes I get 2 people coming to me and they say, well, we're raising money to start a business, but we don't have anything in the business right now. Who's going to give us money? And I say, well, the first person that's going to give you money is your family and friends. And so if you're going to start a business and you have not 2 nickels in your pocket, you guys probably do, but a lot of people don't. What you want to do is go out and raise $10,000 from family and friends. No one's getting paid that. Just very simple. This is a donation. Put money in. We're going to start a business. It's going to be great. And what you can find is that if you have family and friends in it, it provides a core of support that says something to future investors. When you go on down the list, what you'll find is that the best way to raise donation and funding is to use your own website. There's many websites out there, Kickstarter, we'll look at those here in a minute, but go ahead and just use your own website to put it out there. And the reason I say this is, well, why go to all this trouble? They'll just give me, my family and friends will just give me money anyway. And the reason you do this is you start to build a network of people that are supporting you. They have to log in, look at your information, you start building a list, and that's really the key is you start building support behind your business, and you start building support behind your idea. And you also start to learn what it takes to campaign. If you get 10K and now you can go and actually put an idea together, put some content together, the next thing you can do is go out and actually pre-sell it. And this is a great innovation that Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and those groups came up with, is that, you know, back when I was coming out of the university, you had to go raise money, build a product, and then go sell it. There was nothing in between, and it was really hard. But what you can do now is you can go on these sites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and you can pre-sell your product. If you can't pre-sell 50 units, well, you have a product problem, not a business or funding problem. But if you can start to build your customer network. You can start to understand customer requirements. And you can start to demonstrate support for your idea. A lot of people come now into the angel groups and they basically say, well, I put this on Kickstarter and I raised 10K in about 3 days. Okay, sounds good. Even though you haven't really sold it, I can tell there's a market for what you're doing and people are interested, so let's keep talking. And so it really helps demonstrate that you have something that people want. And after you do a rewarded pre-sales campaign, one of the other innovations that came up is what was called the Jobs Act, or Title III. In 2012, they passed the Jumpstart Business Startup Act that says anybody can invest in a startup. They took 3.5 years to work out the deal terms on that thing, and in between that time, a lot of the states, Texas being one of them, passed their own version of that Jobs Act, and they called that the Interstate Crowdfunding Law. And what that basically says is anybody can invest in the business, not just accredited investors. For those who don't know, accredited investors are people that the Securities and Exchange Commission says you're wealthy enough to invest in a risky startup. And basically, if you have $1 million of net worth, not counting the house you live in, you're in that category. That's about 5% of the population. The other 95% previously could not invest in a startup. They go to Las Vegas, throw everything on Black 9 and rule at will and win or lose it all, but they could not invest in a risky startup. And so what happened was they came up with these rules that says anybody can invest, and so what you can do is go back to those people who bought your product, mostly your customers, and get them to invest in your business. And so, again, now you're building up you're turning your customers into brand ambassadors. Now they're getting excited about your business so much that they want to invest and support what you're wanting to do. And what you're going to do is start to learn about equity investment. How do I negotiate selling parts of my business when I do this? If after you do a donation, a rewards, and an interest rate raise, now you're ready for angel investors. And this is where the bigger money comes in. When you want to go out and raise $500,000 or $1 million, you can go do it at this point because you can actually start to use that money to expand sales and marketing. And you can use web tools to go identify these investors and start to have them put money into your business. So now you're starting to grow your business up and getting bigger dollar amounts coming into it using the crowdfunding tools that are out there. And so you can then go on and raise even more. There's another type of funding that's coming up that's very popular. It's called revenue-based funding. That's where, after you get about $500,000 of sales, what people discover is that equity is worth a lot. And I'm just not going to throw 30% of my company on the table every time I go raise funding. And how do I not do that? And the answer is you go out to people and say, well, I'll give you 1% of my revenue if you give me money, and I'll just keep doing that until I give you a certain return back on your money. And therefore, I don't have to give you equity. I can keep that for myself, and in the long haul, I'll have that for myself, which is a very great thing. And it reduces the dilution that's out there. And there's several portals out there like Ladder Capital and XC10 that actually do revenue-based funding. And so you're only basically paying investors when you sell something. So it can be a great way to raise money as well. So if you're trying to start a business, you might think along the lines of, at each stage along the way, there's a different crowdfunding model and portal that you can use for your business. And if you're interested in these slides, just grab my card up here and I'll be glad to just shoot you a copy of these slides later. But basically, if you're raising donation money, you get up to 10K. Rewards prepayment like Kickstarter, 10 to 50. It's hard to get past 50 or 60 in those cases. Jobs Act, those are 50 to 250K raises. Going out to angel investors, if you go to that trouble to go out to accredited investors, you usually start at 250, and that goes up to about $2 million, and then it kind of runs out. And then if you can go after that, you go on to venture capital. And then there's revenue-based funding, and then there's some forms of lending that are out there as well. So some of the things if you go out to raise money is, number one, you want to make sure you're prepared to raise money. Put together an executive summary, put together a pitch deck, put together videos if you need them, and you make sure your documents are ready. Next is prepare your network. The key to raising funding is you have to treat it kind of like a sales process. Whenever you go out to make a sale, they say it takes 7 touches to close a complex sale, so it takes 7 touches to close an investor. And the key with that is you have to go to them, present, and then you have to come back and give them an update. And then you have to give them more information. And you have to show progress. And it's usually after about the 7th meeting that people start to understand what you're doing, get comfortable with it, and then they start to write a check at that point. If you come in, do a pitch, walk away, you will get nothing. And so it's just like a sale. You come in, do a demo, do just that, you probably won't get the sale. You get it on the multiples that come out, and so you have to create a list of investors and then work them through the funnel is mostly what happens there. And then the last one is, if you're actually going to go out and raise funding, it's a daily task. Every day you have to do a little bit on it, and add maybe 1 hour a day is what it usually takes. And after 6 months or 9 months, you will have something that comes out of that. So that's a lot of information about crowdfunding. Let's stop right there and see, does anybody have any questions about that, about how they might do this, or anything about what we said so far? Yes?
So I was meeting with an attorney the other day, and we're talking about different fundraising mechanisms, and they were indicating that crowdfunding is still lack of a better term, a relatively undefined legal framework. There's certain elements out of it, but that the whole underlying structure is still in flux. There's still waiting for case law and things like that to really develop, particularly if you getting to the point where you're trying to sell off a company down the road or things like that. And they were cautious about using crowdsourcing because of the muddy waters. Just curious what your take on that is.
Sure, it's still a new area. The law is still defining this in a big way. What's clear now is that traditional banks and their funding is simply not going to support the growth. It's just an old model that doesn't go out broad enough, doesn't take enough risk, and so we have to go to new models, and crowdfunding is the new model. And like any new model, it takes a while to work out all of the details. One of the bigger challenges with, for example, rewards or Kickstarter is what happens if I put money in and they run off to the Cayman Islands with it. What do I do then?
You actually own part of the company.
That's right. Well, what we're coming up with on that is that, and the FTC is coming out with this, is that if you're raising money to do a certain thing, like build a product, you can only use the money for what you said you were going to use it for. You cannot use it for something else. And a lot of companies got into trouble because they raised money to go build a product, but they ended up using the money to redesign the product. And what they should have done is go raise more money to redesign it as opposed to divert the funds. And FTC and other governments are starting to get much more rigorous about those kind of rules when they understand what that is. The guys who are off to the Cayman Islands, that's pretty clear. They just ran off, and a lot of state governments are starting to crack down on that as well.
And how's the VC community and other, so you might need to do something like crowdfunding initially to get going.
Right.
But then you go out to raise your next round of money when you're looking for that 5, 10, 15 million to really blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
How's the VC community reacting to crowdfunding as a venture? I mean, do they perceive it as clean? Do they perceive it as, oh, this is kind of messy? Is it going to create other issues down the road? And you may not have a choice.
It depends upon how you set up the ownership structure. Traditionally, somebody gave you money, they were on the what's called capitalization table just like everybody else. And when there's 4 or 5 of us, that's no problem. When there's 10 or 15 of us, that's not a problem. When there's 2,000 of us, that's now a problem. Yeah. And so what has to happen when you do crowdfunding is you need to gather up those 2,000 people into one entity. And then now it's easy to work with down the way as you take on later stages of funding. A lot of angels, worried about this. A lot of VCs worried about this. But I can tell you, if somebody does well on Kickstarter or they do well with an angel-level crowdfunding raise, guess who's first in line to talk to them? It's the VCs and the angels, because this has real market validation. This has real traction. So it's great to indicate who the winners are, but you have to structure it. And if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, the key is on the equity side is you don't ever give the investor rights or anything that require you to go back to everybody for a vote. Nobody gets to come in and tell you what to do. Information rights and what you tell people is very, very simplified down. So you do need to manage the process in order not to make it unwieldy later. There was another question. Yes?
The revenue sharing model is one that I haven't looked at before. What kind of multiples are they typically looking for and something like that?
Angel investors want 2x their money in 3 to 5 years. They want at least a 20% annual interest rate. And the way that works is you go to a bank, you get a loan, you're paying back fixed payments no matter what happens. With revenue-based sharing, you're basically saying, I'm going to peel off 5% of top-line revenue and keep paying it out until I give you 2 extra money. And if I can do that in 3 to 5 years, they're in the game for it. 2x is a stated number, 5% is a stated number. The 3 to 5 years is a visionary statement. We may get there, we may not. And because I don't know exactly when I'm going to get paid back, I want a higher interest rate out of it, is how that works. And the thing you have to think about with revenue-based funding is the usury laws. In Texas, the usury laws below $250,000 cap interest rates at 18%, no matter what. So you'll see most of these things going above $250,000. Again, it's kind of a lot of work to do all this for less than $250,000, and so you'll see them. And above $250,000 is commercial loan. Charge whatever you want. But it's a very popular one with restaurants, retails, where the question I always ask people, what is the exit or for this business, or how do you plan to pay the investor back? And some people come in and say, well, I want to raise equity money, and I say, okay, when are we going to sell the business to pay the investors back? And sometimes the answer is, oh, we're never selling the business. This is going to be in the family for the next generation. Well, then equity is really off the table, because that's how investors get paid back on equity, is when you sell it. And we go talk to revenue-based funding, and that works well. Yes, sir?
Yes, back at the very beginning, you said something about what platform, and you said your own website, and what would you elaborate on that?
So there's a lot of crowdfunding platforms out there, and they all charge fees to use them. And in some cases, they're doing a lot for you, and so it's worth having a platform. They take care of the displays. They have investors on the other side and so forth. And what you'll find is that when you start to raise money through crowdfunding platforms, you have to be good with those tools and those mediums. The principles of fundraising have not changed. You still do the same things. But the technologies and the tools are very different now. Instead of, at the angel groups, if I were pitching you for money, I'd stand up here for 10 minutes. You'd be looking at a one-page exec summary. In the crowdfunding world, that 10-minute thing is now a 2-minute pitch video on the screen, and that exec summary is 250 words on the screen of the computer. And so you have to adapt to the new tools there, and if you start to, donations campaign, start to put your deal on the website, you're going to start to learn the dynamics of that and how that works. And I think that's a key educational tool that most people need to know, is that I just don't get to go talk to people face-to-face anymore. I'm now accessing through the website, and so it has to go through emails. It has to go through CRM systems. I have to go use web portals. I have to go use online pitch videos, and it starts to teaches you how to do that. And then if you're using your own website, you don't have to go pay any fees for that, because there's fees on these systems, of course.
Okay, so I thought the advantage of the platforms was that there was already sort of a public, that they were your pitch or your say Indiegogo or whatever page was getting driven out to that.
Right.
Searchable and this kind of thing. So I guess with your own, you just have to figure out how to drive the traffic to you.
Right, and the goal was, to go and make sure that, if I go to you, like I said before, and my family just put money in and nobody else did anything, well, there's no support. And what you'd rather come in and say is, well, I put money in. I put $10K in the bank account. My family put $50K in the bank account. My customers pre-bought. Well, you're starting to build a story here that's really good. And so that's what a donations campaign does, is it starts to show support for your business that you can demonstrate to people down the road. Because the more people in it, each layer kind of builds on top of the other in that case. And that's why we're trying to get out and use these campaigns, is to learn the technologies as well as build support. Yes?
Is the Texas Entrepreneurial Network a registered securities exchange broker-dealer?
No, we're not. TIN is not a broker-dealer, so we don't take back in fees. And on the TIN funding portal, we simply list it up there, and we just charge a transaction fee. The Texas Intrastate, on the other hand, the state will let me take a back-end fee because they want me to do some compliance work, but it's about 1/4 of what a broker-dealer would do. So on that side, we can do that. And there's, of course, advantages and disadvantages of having a broker-dealer in there as well. Cool. What other questions? There's one more over here, I thought. Okay. So, like I said before, there's a stair-step function that we can go through and raise funding at each level along the way to use crowdfunding to actually generate interest in your business itself. The thing we wanted to bring up over here was, well, there's a network behind the crowdfunding portal. Yes, there is, but you have to be very careful about what that network will do for you. So, for example, in Kickstarter, how much money do you think Kickstarter raises for you versus what you're raising through your own mailings and network and means? Anybody want to guess what Kickstarter is doing for you percent-wise? Wharton did a study of this 2 years ago. It may have gone up or down a little bit, but from what I can tell, it's probably still pretty much the same. Anybody want to guess? How much do you think it is?
You probably get, what, 70, 80%?
Okay, anybody else?
15 or 20? Yeah, I'm thinking more like 10.
10? Oh, wow, that's scary.
Meaning, as a raiser of money, you're getting 70, 80% of the proceeds. They're probably keeping 20.
So Kickstarter is raising 70% of your money for you?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 5%. 5% it comes from Kickstarter. The other 95% came from what you did. And if you go out to Kickstarter, you'll see that in spades, because what you'll see is that out of every 4 deals, only 1 deal has any money on it. 0, 0, 0 money, 0, 0, 0 money, 0. And the people that put 0 up there thought, oh, they're going to do it for me. But the reality is they're a portal. They're just simply giving you a display. They're giving you tools, and there's a little bit of transactions going through it. But for the most part, it's up to you to raise money. And that's one of the keys with crowdfunding is fundamentally you own the raise and you have to drive it through with the network. If I ever put a deal up on my site with 0 money raised on day 1 and it's still 0 5 days later, it's 0 till the end of time, because nobody wants to go first. And so those deals where you see it 0 on day 1 and suddenly it pops up, 10%, those guys started 3 months in front of that raise, getting those guys ready to go. You go around and you ask people, okay, I'm going to offer this for this amount of money. Would you do it? Yes. Okay, write the name down and so forth. And then when the deal goes live, they go back to all those people that they talked to, that they signed up and said, okay, we're live now. Go put your money in. And all this money comes rushing in like it was this new thing. Well, no, they just preloaded it up. And that's kind of how any kind of funding works, is that you have to lead it with your network. Investors do not want to take the risk of being the first ones in, especially people that don't know you, and so they're looking to see, well, is your network in this? If the answer is yes, okay, well, this is interesting. If the answer is no, well, I don't want to go first. Some investors want to do what's called the smart money thing. But you know what the smart money thing is? Be the last guy in is the smart money thing. And entrepreneurs come to me all the time saying, I got 3 investors, and all they're doing is saying to each other, well, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. You go first. And they're just not wanting to be the first one in, because the first one in can be the last one in, so, or the only one in. And so what they want to do is, what you have to do is show them that other people in, money's already been spent, the terms already been set, and so it's safe to come in and join people. And investors are followers in one sense, and you have to help them just follow into some of these deals. So we've gone through the different groups that are out there. Credit investor raises come next, revenue-based funding. There are some crowd lending tools out there as well that can be very helpful as well for smoothing out cash flow and giving lines of credit, but there's not many of them out there as well. So the key here is that you want to choose your model based on what stage you're in at that point. And then you want to go out and select the platform to use. I gave some examples up here of ones that I know that are very popular, being used quite a bit, that you can use as well. And then go out and build your investor and then your campaign documents, and then go out and prepare your network to support it before you ever launch the campaign. One of the best techniques I ever saw was a guy that said, well, he'd go to potential investors and he'd say, well, I'm not raising money today, but in 6 months I will be. Can I keep you informed of my progress? And everybody would say, well, I'm kind of curious to see how it comes out, so yeah, keep me informed. And then every month he'd send an update to them about how he was building the business and so forth. And in 6 months he had 40 or 50 people that knew everything about his business because they had been getting these updates. And then when he went to go raise money, he did not have to educate them anymore. He had already done that. And by not raising money, the pressure was off. Nobody felt like they were being sold. They were just learning about this thing and interesting to see going. And every month he'd come out with one update. And I saw that and I thought, well, that was really a nice idea because he's getting his 7 touches in before he's actually raising money. And then when it comes time to raise money, he's got a nice list of prospects that know all about it. And that's really the key to raising funding is educating your investors in a nice way or easy way, so they're on the journey with you, so to speak. What you'll find with investors is that they overweight what they see you do in front of them, and they'll underweight what you did before. And so you want to play out all the good news in front of them as much as you can, and then you'll get much more credit for it. And then build a list of people and educate them very well about how you're doing. So that's it for the slides, I think. If there are any other questions, I'm glad to take them. Yes?
I have a very simple question, right? So, is there a list of people who have tons of money and waiting to invest in IT projects?
Is there
A list of people or known people who have tons of money and interested in investing in IT projects? Because we all, like, half people are IT, right? Doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know there is a list of people or a list of, who have tons of money and they're ready to invest on the IT project?
Right. We have those lists. There's different sources of those lists out there. When we went to help people raise venture capital, what we discovered is there's 2,000 investors that invest in Texas companies, mostly venture capital around the country and so forth. And we knew that because they had a portfolio here already. I think the challenge you find is that it's a highly dynamic world. You go raise a fund, you invest it, you no longer have funds to invest. Maybe you raise another fund, you can invest again. So while there are lists out there, you'll find it's still very much a relationship thing. It's still a personal thing that's out there. So the answer is yes, but it's not that easy to actually go and just do a mail shot and we're done in that case. Yes?
I was going to say, do those people that have all this tons of money and want to invest, do they want that to be publicly known?
In some cases, yes. They're looking for good deal flow. The challenge is they want quality deals. They just don't want anything. And what's always surprising to me whenever I've done an angel group or a pitch contest, I'll say, the criteria is you must have a product in the market. You must have revenue of 100K. Guess what percent don't actually meet the criteria when they submit, even though it's in this big letters on the website? Anybody want to guess?
95?
It's 50%. Half the people that come in do not meet the criteria, even though it says up there you must have a product. Yeah, I know, but.
Yeah.
Or yes, but I will have a product.
We're close.
Or yes, it's just like being a product. I mean,
We're fixing to.
I'm not doing a favor. It's just like being a product. Okay. Can you get just like money? And the answer is, well, no, I can't get revenue unless I have a product. And so, anyway, the challenge is unqualified deal flow clogs up the system. Yes?
Let's talk about what a quality deal looks like. Because what I've observed is a lot of angel investors, of course, venture capital, what have you, they want the unicorns. They want the highly sexy product that's got lots of IP, it's got recurring revenues, it's going to blow Facebook and Uber out of the water, and it's going to make me a multi-billionaire the second time over.
Those are the ones we're going to come up with.
There you go. But a lot of the businesses that are transacted are basic brick and mortar type businesses. Signs, generating 20-30% free cash flow, making some sort of widget that people use in everyday life. They aren't sexy, but they do cash flow and they are viable businesses. Are there people that will invest in this because what I've seen is that a lot of the banks are still kind of cagey on any small business saying they're $10 million thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people like venture capitalists that want the next Uber, and they're going to do the alpha thing, and they're going to try to get 100x, and that's what they're shooting for. I'd say the average angel, what they're looking for is a really solid return. The rule in angel investing is they want 3 to 5 times their money in 3 to 5 years. The heartburn a lot of these guys have is that it's been 15 years since people really exited in 3 to 5 years. Whenever somebody invests at the seed level of a company, they now know they'll be in that deal for 10 years. And it's the illiquidity that really hurts them, and that's what really slows them down. And so revenue-based funding or some component of that can be helpful in that case. Most people that come into the angel groups don't have revenue. They don't have consistent revenue. They don't have profitability. They've got an idea, they've got a prototype, or there's what I call the half entrepreneurs. They got half a product, they got half a team, and they got half a customer. I mean, they're kind of using the product, but not really, and he's kind of working for me, but not really, and it's all just kind of vague and fuzzy, and it's just really hard. If you have a solid revenue path growing at a consistent rate, you will find angel investors very interested in that, because that's a very rare thing in the angel room today. There's just so many, as we said before, non-quality deals where people are shopping their idea, and investors are simply not doing that. Number one, you've never run a business before, this looks risky, and number two, this is a 10-year commitment, because this is how long these things take. Yes?
Of the 3 different types of crowdfunding you talked about, the pre-sales like on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, which I think are viable for hardware products that are reasonably priced, seem to be successful, versus a debt raise or equity raise, which is subject to all the securities law. What is a viable time frame for that crowdfunding campaign from launch to close date?
You know, a rewards campaign, they say, should take no more than 30 days. And the reason for that is because everybody gets tired of it. Even the guy issuing it gets tired of it because it's a full-time job. The total time from start to finish is a 6-month window, though. You start 4 months in front, you prepare your network, you prepare the docs, you get it all ready, and then you run it on the website for 30 days, and then you spend a month following it up. When people go to raise $250K from angel networks, I tell them that's going to be a 5 to 6 month process. My rule in general is for every $1 million you want to raise in equity money, it will take you 1 calendar year to raise it. If you're better connected or your product is further along, it may go faster, but in general, it takes a while for all kinds of reasons. People don't work during the holidays. It takes time to do due diligence. Lawyers want a month and a half to do the paperwork, and it's just a year-long process to go raise $1 million. So when people come in and want to raise money, my recommendation is you want to start with $250K, go raise that, get that as fast as you can, and start to build your business. As that money's building up and so forth, you can raise more money, your valuation goes up, and so the amount of ownership you're giving away for follow-on money is much less. If you raise $1 million at the seed stage, you've given away almost half the company in some cases, and that really doesn't make sense. But if I raise $250 and I give away a smaller portion of the company and start to get some traction, I can raise more money without giving away almost all the equity in the business. So there's a little bit of an art to it at this point, for sure. That's the last part I had at this point. Like I say, I've got my cards up here. If anybody wants to have the slides, just drop me an email. I'll email them back to you, and we'll go from there. And I'll be here afterwards if you have any questions. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Dave to do the closings.
All right.